Hi everybody, good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, Nadi.
Okay, while we start, anybody has any questions regards to what we completed yesterday? Feel free to ask. Let's get started.
Yes, you can start.
Okay, so to begin with, what we're going to discuss today, we will cover the most interesting part of Excel, which helps us automate a lot of daily usable tasks. Now, this can be helpful for people who try to create dashboards on a daily basis, or people try to capture it on a daily basis. Macro is exclusively designed to make use of. Give me 1 minute. Okay. So, what does macro do? Macro is a language which is available in Excel, which is also known as VBA. VBA stands for Visual Basic for Application. Now, this is a way where you can train the system and tell that these are 4 or 5 steps that I want to do it. And you just have to tell the system next time with the data that these are 4 or 5 steps which I had told you last time, redo it again. Now you can tell the system to redo the same stuff again and again and again. Benefit of it is that you don't miss out any step. I mean, if at all it has to be done manually, there are greater chances that you may miss out 1 or 2 steps. And it has more dependency if you do it manually, that you only should be available. No matter how well defined your process is, you write things, but still the person who's executing it may end up doing some or the other mistake. Another benefit of it is like it can be repeated any number of times, right? So there are no limitations that it will work only once in a day, twice in a day, and it can work any number of times. Benefit number 3 is that it is fast. I mean, it's more faster than anybody can think. I mean, if at all I have to execute 4 or 5 steps, I may take 5 seconds, but if I train macro to do those 4 or 5 steps, it will take less than half second. Right? So that's like almost 4.5 minutes saving out of 5 minutes. That's the additional benefit. Now, reduces dependency, that I don't have to be physically available to carry out certain tasks. It can be done without me being present. All it is required is that your data should be in the same format, or you need to train your macro that it can get adjusted to any kind of format. If these things are in place, then you make use of the beautiful feature called macros or PDA. Now, to get started, macros are linked with a lot of benefits. I mean, it can be like written step by step, or it can be recorded. Like just like I want to quote an incident here. That you know what, my daughter doesn't sleep until I sing a lori, whatever you call it in Hindi. Give me 1 minute. Somebody is complaining that my voice is not audible. Can others confirm if you're able to hear me?
Actually, now it's fluctuating. Meanwhile,
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, is it throughout Amar, or only for some time? Because I
sometime it's fluctuating.
Okay, give me 1 minute. I'll disconnect my headset.
Yeah.
My daughter doesn't sleep Hey folks, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Great. Okay, so let's start from the beginning. So we're talking about a beautiful application or provision available within Excel, which is called as VBA. Now, VBAs are available in Word, VBA is available in PowerPoint, it is also available in Excel. So there are a lot of changes the way we work in day-to-day life, but still macro still is being called as a legacy. It has its beautiful features which can be like, once you have learned it, you execute it in different ways and you try to get things done very faster, more accurately, and has no limitations to it, like it can run once, twice, or whatever. So reduces dependency, increases productivity, etc. Now, while to write a macro or to do scripting, you not necessarily need to be completely involved or to be a developer that I need to know coding, VBA end to end, right? It's absolutely not required, because Excel has got options to do development of whatever activities that you do by itself in two forms. One, you can write things on your own, starting from the first letter to the last letter, and then tell the system that this is my piece of activities that you have to do, please repeat it. And you just say repeat, and you keep repeating. That's one way of doing it, which is tough, but you need some amount of time to gain the knowledge of scripting VBA. But the other way of doing it is simply recording a piece of information. You tell the system that these are 4 or 5 things that you will have to do. It will redo the next time when you execute that action. Now, what is it you will have to do? I will quickly show it on my screen. I'll take a very simple example here and try to tell you how it works. Now, so to begin with, we will first figure out how to enable macros. You need to take care of a couple of steps before we do that. Now, if you can find this option, well and good. If you're not able to, you will have to go to the ribbon option and enable it first. To do that, follow these steps, which is go to home, go to options. Then you have something called as customize ribbon. Look for developer option if it is not added already. Then just check it and click on OK. You will get to see additional ribbon option here called developer. These are the tools which will be used to create a macro. So we will first start to understand what a recorded macro is. Now, to begin with, or before we do it, let me put a case study to you, or how to or what could be the used case of writing a macro. So I have a security at a mall, or let's say it's a store, walk-in store. Enters and there is an exit point. So all I need to do is track the time that somebody comes inside and steps outside. Right. So all I need to do would be is capture the time that anybody steps inside and steps outside. Now this may try to calculate and give me the output that what is the total time that somebody has spent. So that could be like somebody came at, let's say, 10 a.m. and he steps out at 10:30. So how much time did I spend? Would be 10:30 minus 10 a.m. Now this, you will have to do it for every customer that comes and goes out. Now it is slightly difficult for you to enter today's date time, go to this row, then enter the exit time, then compute the time which is this minus this, and leave the comment here. Matlab, calculate the time here. Similarly, once you're done with this, you need to come to this row, enter the inside time, stepping out time, and then calculate it. Once you're done with this, you will have to go to. So now this process looks little complicated, that you know what, if at all I have to give it to a security personnel who is having very limited knowledge about data or Excel sheet, he or she may not be able to really pick it up immediately. Getting me? What is the solution for him or her would be is maybe I will simply create a spreadsheet having very simple option that you just need to click somewhere. The system will take care of the actions. All you need to have is keep an eye of the customer As in when he enters, put a time. As in when he exits or she exits, put the time. System will take care where to go and put the exact timestamp. Right now, yeah, 10:30 p.m. 10:30 p.m. minus. There's a question. What if it is 10:30 p.m.? Let me say it is 22:30. So it took 12 hours and 30 minutes for somebody to step in and step out. I think that's the question, right? What if it is 10:30 p.m.? That's the output. Anyway, so let's get back to the topic and discuss what is that we need to do now. So very easy understanding about it. What are the benefits that we get out of it? One is that definitely you get the total time spent. Let's say if this is having a date and then the time, right? This is having a date and then the time. Now you can tell the system that, you know what, you can give a lot of information like hour of the day, it's going to be so much. It can be like, you can get more information about day, which is like type day and tell the pickup date, which dates, what is the average time spent. You can also tell whether it was a what kind of weekday it was, right? So I can pick up the system and ask the system to please split the data between month, sorry, DDD, and then you can simply apply a pivot and tell that on Tuesday what is the average amount of time that somebody spends, on a Monday what is the average amount of time spent. Now all that is dependent would be is only on these two primary items. Now here, if you give somebody access to type numbers manually, he or she may end up typing something wrong, which can be like a past date, month in place of date, date in place of month. How do I get rid of all of these problems? End of the day, I will apply some functions here and then try to summarize my information, get a lot of insights out of it, right? So this is going to be helpful for me to plan that in a monthly calendar date, generally at the beginning of the month, it is busy, end of the month it is busy, mid of the month it is not busy. How do I do that? Is first you need to capture data, right? These days though, you have a lot of automation where it will by default consider the step and count, and then when you do a billing then it will calculate the time. But otherwise, as a general shop where all these features are not available, how will he or she do it? So this is one of the situation. Now we need to develop a solution for it. What is the solution? Is that as a person who's sitting at the entry and exit gate or keeping observation on the entry and exit gate, all this person would do is click a button here, and then the time is automatically added. Click another the same button or any other button, then the exit time is added, and then I'll say compute, it will calculate all of this and then go to the next row. Now it depends on how you want to execute it. So to begin with, let me talk about how to record some steps, right? Now just observe my screen. I for now have only one sheet, how to make total time spent. Okay, there's a question how to calculate the total time spent. Dear, it's mathematics, which is the time of exit minus time of entry is equal to total time spent. Right? It's simple calculation that B2 minus A2 is equal to total time spent, right? Which is your exit time minus entry time will be equal to your time spent. Okay, so let me try to first give you an explanation of what exactly a macro is. Now to do that, I will make use of the developer option. I have record macro. Now before you do that, try to go back and click on this macro security. You will get a dialog box like this. Be sure that this is ticked if you are not downloading any macro files from unknown sources, only that. If you try to download a lot of files from internet, do not keep this enabled. There's a lot of issues that can happen, that somebody can corrupt your system just by the help of having macros into their Excel sheet. So macro can run only without clicking on anything. Just open the file, the macro will run. or sometimes macro can be configured in a way that you close a file, the macro will run, right? So it has capability of click a button, run a macro, click a shortcut on your keyboard, run a macro, open the file, the macro will run, close the file, the macro will run. So you can execute it at multiple stages. Sometimes only a cell change can execute a macro. So you need to be sure about it. So for you to keep your system healthy, by default, this is not enabled. Now, if you are sure that you don't download data from a lot of internet services, you can enable it. This is the developer option. If you want to come to this from a different way, then you have to go to file options. There you have trust center. You can come from there. You will get macro settings. Just enable or disable them. Now, while you have disabled it, then when you open a file, it will show a dialog box telling there are macros in it. Will you want to run? Then you will have to say, yes, I need to run. If you keep this something like what I have currently on my screen, that enable macros not recommended, potentially dangerous, then these will not even prompt for your confirmation. It will just run, which is harmful. You need to be double sure about it, that don't enable them by default. If not, you are at risk. I mean, you can do it if you're sure that you don't download a lot of files from unknown sources. So if you're sure about it, then you can enable them and you can leave it here. If not, keep it somewhere here where it will show a prompt that are you sure you want to execute the file, only then it will run. So these files are little harmful. So this area, this particular macro security settings is a little concerning thing. You need to take care of it. Now let me record my first macro. Like I said that there are two ways to record a macro or to write a macro. One is using the VBA method where you can script it. Two is you can train your Excel sheet and ask him to execute some activity. So for now, I will keep my relative referencing on and say record a macro. So we spoke about relative referencing already. So let's say there is no name. I will rename this as add sheet. I will, it's asking me that give me a shortcut. Now, before we go there, let us talk about macro name. You cannot use names here with space, right? Avoid them. Try to create text as much as possible without any space. Now, if you want to separate them, you can use an underscore, etc., but not a space. You have an option to give a shortcut. If you know that you are going to execute it, you can give a shortcut. By default, control is selected. Avoid giving shortcuts which are already there in system. So for example, control C, right? This is already used to copy, right? Control V is already used to paste. So avoid giving such names. Try to give names which are unique, different. So here I will make a combination of Control Shift T, which is basically T stands for timestamp for our understanding, or let's put it as Control Shift S because I'm going to add a sheet. So you can add only one alphabet, not more than it. So I'm telling Control Shift S and I click OK. So I can leave comments here. What does this macro do? But otherwise, I will not. Just observe my active screen. Sorry, the navigation bar here, the activity bar here. It will show some information. I will click OK. If you observe the icon here, for now it is in recording mode. It will quickly change it to stop mode. Right? So for now, whatever I do, even a single click on any cell, click. Okay, movement of mouse will not affect it at all. But if I click on any cell, the system will record that information. Till the time I don't click it, it is not going to add any help. So for now, all I need to do is add a sheet. Okay, so I will click on this plus. It has added a sheet. Now I will stop it. Okay, so now you can see that there are two sheets on my screen. If at all, enable the shift in the key. Sir, how you just need to hold, right? So I will show the re-recording method again. So all that we did was that whichever sheet you are, try to create another sheet to the right, which is by clicking on this plus. Now, if you remember the shortcut I had pressed was, okay, let me open my on-screen keyboard so that we do it along. So here is my sheet. Observe there are only two worksheets in this book 9. I will try to add Control Shift Sheet. You see that there is another sheet which was created. I will redo it again. Control Shift Sheet. It created another one. I want to create one more. So I will click on this plus. will say control shift sheet. So the macro has remembered the activity that I do on execution of this particular button called control shift S. Every time I do it, it will start adding sheets as many number of times as you have clicked. A book can have a capacity to consider at least 256 worksheets in a single workbook. How you enable the shift key in recording? Yeah, I'll show it to you, Zohair. Give me 1 minute. I'll repeat it again. Right, so for now, we have learned what first step of how to record a macro, and in the recording, we only added a sheet. Now here, what we want to do is we want to insert date, time, and then move to right, right? So I will enter date, time here, and then move to right. That's all that is expected, right? So how do I execute it? You have two options. Either you can press a key that we just created similar to this, or you have an option to assign a button, right? How do I assign a button? We will just step there. Let me try to first create our first macro, inserting the timestamp when somebody comes in. Now, there are too many benefits of using macro if you are good at identifying functions than typing time manually, because typing time manually is as good as typing the data directly in the cell itself. But if you're good at using functions, that is going to be more helpful. So now, if at all I want to get the timestamp here, which is like 15th of November 1922 and some seconds, what functions do you think I should use here? I mean, it's an open question. Give it a try. All I need to know is what function do I use to get the current timestamp, which is as of now, 15th of November 1922. Yeah, that's a very correct answer. Anybody else who can try? Good work, Harshi. Akshata has given me two choices, but only one is correct. Akshata, we're talking about time specifically here, not limited to one information, and you cannot use both of them. Your data will get cluttered. Good work, Shubham. Thankfully, I have 3 people who have attempted. I need some more. Can you please try? What function do you think I should choose to get the current timestamp, which is as of now? All I need to show the cell is what is the time now. Somewhere my question only has the answer. All you need to do is put some effort and type that. What function do I use to get the current timestamp? Okay, there is a suggestion which tells why don't you use control shift colon. There's a good way of doing it. Let me show you the pros and cons of it. So it says control shift and colon, right? You got the time, not the date. So the number of clicks that you will want to do will increase, that you need to do it 2 times. Right. I'm sorry I could not read your name though, but perfect answer. Right. So what we need to do to get current time would be is you need to tell the system, please tell me what is the time as of now. Right. But then there is a concern. Right. Now is a function. If I close this workbook, open it after half an hour, the time will not be 1924, it will change. Why? Because you have actually told that this cell A2 has a function called now. So tomorrow when you open, it will still remain now. You need to do some more activity to it. So first activity was identifying the cell, which is A2, that is inside time. Next activity was to enter the current time. But now I need to ensure that this does not change after some time. Now you can observe that it is 1925. Keep an eye. I will enter the outside time in the cell B2 is equal to now. Just keep an eye on A2. That time will also change. Okay. I'm completing the formula by using control enter. You see that both have changed. Why? Because the cell does not have value. It has a function, right? So the next step that you will have to do after entering a formula would be is, it is now, but copy whatever now you see and change it to values, right? That's the second step. Now I want the copy to stop. So I will use the escape button that please stop, come out of the copy paste mode and be in ready mode, and then press tab. So what are the steps that are involved? First is enter now, open, close. Next step, copy, let your cell be as is, paste as values, escape, and then tab so that you move here, right? Next cell, you will have to enter the timestamp again. Now I have told you the steps. Let's try to record a macro. Now there was a question, how do we ensure that along with control, the shift option is also available? Let's try to do it in real. So now I will click on record and tell that I want entry time stamp. What is the shortcut you want? Just observe my screen. I am not doing anything extra here. Control is enabled by default. I will tell the system that please use control shift timestamp. Shift T, right? So control shift is coming by default. I mean, control is by default selected that every macro should be executed with a control. So I added shift by pressing shift and T. So we picked up that the shortcut to execute timestamp is going to be this. Now let me try to include the steps we will do in description. First, we enter current time using function. Now, after that, we copy and paste the cell as values. Then we move the cell to the next one, right? So these are the comments. It's all not mandatory, it's optional. I realize my internet was unstable. I hope my voice is clear now. And can somebody?
Yes, voice is clear.
Thanks. This is a question, how we give formula to whole rows or columns? Yeah, possible. You need to use a little bit of external coding. I will talk about it once we get some samples, right? Right, so this is optional. This is optional. Only mandatory thing is you need to give a name. By default, system will pick up some random name, which will show as macro 9, 10, whatever number of times you have executed a macro, it will pick up that name. So this is the only one which is mandatory. Give some names which can make some logical explanation. Try avoiding spaces. Try to make use of underscore. Do not start with numbers and do not leave only numbers. So that's not going to be helpful. So I will click on OK. Just observe for now, the sheet will change from record macro to stop macro, right? So currently it is in stop macro stage. I'm in A2. So I will tell the system is equal to now. I will try to use the on-screen keyboard so that you're not confused. I will say control enter. Why I did this is because I don't want the cell to move to any other place. So I will say control enter. It will remain in cell A2 itself. Till the time you don't click it, macro will not record it. I will have to do is copy, and then I will have to paste values, and I give enter. That's the next step. I will say come out of copy paste mode, remain in ready, and give tab. I'm done with the steps that I'm supposed to do, and I will simply stop it. Right now, let's try to execute the macro. The keyboard shortcut that we had kept was control shift timestamp. You see that timestamp came in, the row went to the next cell. Let's try to enter the timestamp again. I know we're not talking about step outside time, but I'm trying to cover the in time because this particular area is different. This is different. Both have got their own reasons why we want to. So I will say control shift T. It will add the timestamp again. If you want to be more precise, Let me increase the seconds. We are talking about year, month, date, hour, minute, second, and this is good to know information. Where you want to be more specific about nanoseconds, you can add a dot and put 3 zeros. You get to see the nanoseconds. So that's the difference between each one of them. Every time I execute the shortcut, which is Control Shift timestamp, it will add a timestamp in the current cell, which is A5, move to right. If I try to type the same here, it will execute the same one. Only difference would be is it will type the timestamp here and move to right. Just observe the screen. It has moved to right. Now I will have to click here, say Control Shift timestamp. It will go to right. Now let me show you what happened in the background. Somebody is asking me to repeat. Yeah, we will do it again. Okay, so let me show it to you in backend what exactly it did. To get to see the current code, what we may have written, you will have to click on Visual Basic. So from developer, click on Visual Basic. This will open the code window. I will not talk about it for now. You will have something called as modules. If you click on it, you will get to see all the macro names that you had created a while ago, right? So here we created, to add a sheet, we created a macro with a shortcut called Control Shift S sheets dot add after current active sheet. That is the same thing which we did a while ago, right? So here I am. So if I have to execute a macro to add a sheet, just keep an eye. I'm in sheet 1. Control Shift add a sheet. You see that sheet was added after the active sheet, right? So this is the active cell I am in. This is the active sheet I am in. So all it did was this small piece of code was able to add a sheet after the active sheet. Now let's talk about the next one. Now here are the comments that we wrote a while ago. It's telling that entry timestamp macro. First, we enter current time using function now. We copy and paste the cell value. Then we move the cell to the next one. All that is happening in the same window. It's written as a comment, but yes, all this we literally did it. What did we do? If you observe the first action, it is recorded here that cell selection, whichever cell you are in, try to write a formula in R1C1 format, which should be written something like is equal to, now open close. It's exactly same, just that the codes are visible here. Then we copy and paste special as values, right? So here's the next piece of information we wrote. We copy and paste the cell as values, right? So it's done. Then we say stop the copy paste mode. This is the place where you use the escape button. That copy paste mode should be disabled, because if I press enter accidentally, the same information will be pasted to the next one. Now I am telling, please move one cell to the right. So whatever active cell I am in, move one cell. This is the row, this is the column. That's what offset stands for. It's telling the row remains as is. Column will be moving one to the right. So if I say -1, it will go to the left. If I say don't put any number, don't put plus symbol and just put numbers, it will move accordingly. Right now, let's try to go back and recreate the same information again. Right. So if you want to get rid of this, I'm not going to talk about this for now because it doesn't seem to be that relevant. Can you show me again, developer? Okay, I'm going to repeat the entire process again. So we are going to record the macro. So for now, let's start from the beginning. I'll clear the entire sheet and we'll go back to the situation where I need to do steps 1. First is use function now in the current cell. Then copy, paste as values in the same cell. Escape key to come out of the copy paste mode. So generally when you copy here, you see that the activity bar shows that select a destination to paste. If you want to get out of it, and this status bar should show ready, all you need to do on your keyboard is hit escape. Just observe the screen. What happens? I've not selected the Excel. right? So now I say escape. You see that I am out of the copy paste mode. The data, whatever was copied, I will redo the copy bit again. So this is in copy mode. It's telling select a destination and press enter or choose paste. That's what we did. So we first did the now function. We copy pasted as values, but then the cell was still in copy paste mode. To get rid of it and come to ready mode, I will say escape. So I am coming out of it. Now I need to move one step to the right. So I will use tab button so that I can move to the right. I can use the arrow click as well. That will also do the same job. To be safer side, I'm using tab because it will go only one step. If I attempt to hit more than once, it can go. So this might be divided into, let's say it is something like this. And then this is tab. So here are 4 steps of information for you to get the current timestamp, which is now, open, close, copy, paste as values, then escape, then tab, right? Now, this could have been easy, but then it's even more easy if you record it than being dependent on somebody who needs to enter this information. No matter how much you train, somebody can end up making mistakes. So I will keep my relative references on, go to recording mode. I will tell, say, enter new timestamp, or let me rename this as entry time stamp second attempt. Okay. To get here, I will show it on my screen. Control is clicked by default. I will use shift because T was already assigned to something, so I cannot use a T again. This time I will try to use E, which is entry time. Yeah, come on. Right, so here is the shortcut key. So I will say shift entry timestamp so that we can remember it. I will say 4 steps. Step 1 is enter now function. Step 2 is copy. Step 3 is paste values. Step 4 would be is escape key to come out of the, it's not mandatory though, but yes, you can do that, escape. Fifth one would be is move one cell to the right? So I am done with all of it. I will minimize this and click OK. I will execute all the 5 steps now in cell A2. In fact, I will use the keyboard on the screen itself. So I will want to enter is equal to now, open brackets, come. I need to close this. I will press control enter, so that, because generally when you hit enter, it will come from 2 to 3. I don't want macro to record that step. So I'm avoiding it. I'm using control enter so that it remains in the same cell. So I will say control C alt E S V values and then enter. So now it has pasted as value. You can see this on the screen. I want to stop the copy paste mode. Now nothing is there on the clipboard. I need to go one cell to the right. So I will give tab. I am done with my 5 steps. So I will stop it. Right. So there is some piece of information here for step outside. There are some more information. Basically, it should not go to the right. Instead, it should come to the bottom. So that's why I have not done it. Let's try to execute the same code which we did a while ago, but this time we try to create a code with the help of Control Shift E. To see what happened, that it entered the timestamp. Whenever I clicked, it went to the step right. I will say again Control Shift E, right? So it did the timestamp again and it went to the right. So I will redo the same stuff again, Control Shift E. So it added the timestamp. Now, how do I know what is the code written in the backend? To know that, you will have to go to developer, click on Visual Basic, you will get a lot of options. These are the sheets which are present in my workbook. I will show it to you. You can see all the sheets which are created here, but macros get created in modules, right? So you see the module here. Module 1 is created by default when you started recording. So we had created 3 macros so far. One was to add a sheet. The other one was to put the entry timestamp, but with a different shortcut called Control Shift T. We repeated the same information, but this time with the shortcut called Control Shift E, which is entry timestamp. These are the 5 steps which we created, which is enter now. So whatever is the selection, the current cell, it is executing the formula called now. Next thing it had to do is copy the current selection, which is the active cell. 3 is paste values, and it should be pasted as values. Rest of all remains default, no changes. Then remove the copy paste mode and come to active cell. So it used the escape key to come out of it. Then the 5th activity, which is active cell dot offset, move one cell to the right. It is at A1. So it has gone and moved one cell to the right. Right. So this is all that it did. That if you execute this activity, it will run. Now let's talk about how all can you execute one macro, right? I know remembering these shortcuts could also be a problem, right? The first one we already spoke about, writing, remembering a shortcut and re-executing it. Now the next one would be is, why don't we try to do it with the help of the macro screen itself? I will readjust these so that you can observe them side by side. So my cursor is in the entry timestamp 2, and here is the active cell. Now here you see a list of options. This guy is called as run. You can use a shortcut called F5. I will press this. You can observe the screen to the left. It will have a timestamp. You see that? It updated the timestamp. I will click here again. I'll click on press again, run again. It will do the same activity. What is it doing? These are the steps that it is doing. There are other ways to write time. I'm giving it so that you can relate to the function bit. Anyways, so I will run this way. So these are 2 ways of executing it. One, at the time of recording macro, you can give a shortcut. 2, you can go to the code window and run, which is more complicated. I will tell you about the third one, which is about assigning it to a button. Let's say I will go back, you in the developer tab, I have a button here. I will try to add that button and assign it to it. Now this doesn't look that fancy. Let me try to get some fancier button. Yeah, illustration, shapes. I will pick up a oval. Right. Now I can type information here and say entry time stamp. Right. So for now, there is nothing assigned to it. If you want to assign it, just click on it so that you get to see these dots available. Right click and say assign macro. The moment you click it, you get to see the existing macros on your screen. Just select the one that you want to assign. And that the moment you give OK, all that will happen is this guy will be able to, will be enabled to execute that macro. Just keep an eye on the screen. I am simply clicking here. It has executed that step. I will click here again. I will say put entry timestamp. It has executed the entry timestamp. Now let's try to add some more piece of information, or let's say we'll start doing from the beginning. So here is the time I got the entry timestamp. Next time I want would be is put exit timestamp and move one row to the bottom, right? I know I have done an entry to put the timestamp in column A. Next, I want you to move to B. after you have done the same activity here, instead of moving to the right, I want you to go to the bottom, right? So to do that, I will go back to developer and record a macro telling, give me exit timestamp. Give me 1 minute. Right, so for your help, somebody's asked to again explain the timestamp. We are doing it for the exit. It's much similar. So we will try to add the exit timestamp. This time, let's say that Control Shift E, I think we have already used it. So we'll use Control Shift W. This time, add timestamp and move, copy, paste as values and move to a cell below and a column to the left, right? So I will say okay. Now the code has started to record all that I'm going to do. So I will first say is equal to, now it has done the selection. So I will say close the bracket, control enter. It has the values now. Copy, paste as values, click OK. I will say come out of this copy paste mode. This time you need to go to the cell A3. So I will say down arrow key, left arrow key, and I am done with all the activities I want to. I will say stop. Now, before we do that, before we enter the next entry timestamp, let us try to create another button and assign one more macro which we just created called exit timestamp. So I will have it created right below it and edit the text. Exit timestamp. So I am done with this. Let me assign the macro. Assign macro exit timestamp. Click OK. So now I am in row A3. Let me put the entry timestamp. What happened, my friend? I'm in the code window. Yeah, it will not work. Oh, it did not stop. Yeah, shit. Okay, give me 1 minute. Let me delete the unnecessary. So this is one more way of viewing code. Instead of going to developer, you can right click on the sheet. It will take you to the code window. Go to modules. It has tried to recollect all that I had typed. So I will simply delete all the unnecessary information and let it recollect only what I want. I will save this. Though. Right, so now let me enter the entry timestamp. I got the time. I need to put the exit timestamp. Come to the row bottom. Entry timestamp, exit timestamp, entry timestamp, exit timestamp, entry timestamp, exit timestamp. So now I can start doing all of it with it by itself. Now you can do a lot of automation to it. That is, you try to understand which row you are in and then try to execute either of the codes. Like if your current column is 1, then you need to execute this macro. If your current column is B, then you need to execute this macro. Basically, you don't need these two tabs. Instead, you need a single tab. For that, you need to know what is the current column you are in, right? If you are in none of these columns, then you can customize another error and tell the system that, okay, you are not in the right column. Please go to the correct column. Then you click here, then it will execute the code. For now, all these combinations are not present, but yes, all are doable. I will want to take like 2-3 minutes here. If folks who have system, like I requested yesterday, try to create some macros on your own, please. I mean, take the same example, or if you want to create anything of your own, I will be happy to look into the concerns that you're facing when you are recording it. So please, it's my request, try doing it yourself. That will be helpful for you, that you can retain whatever you have learned so far. There's a question for me. Send it in the chat box, all shortcut keys for 4 steps. There's a question, send in the chat box all shortcut keys of 4 steps. There are no shortcut keys. You can do it on your own. Dear, I mean, I don't have any problems to copy paste the code that I have created, but you can do it just like you use your keyboard. You don't really need shortcuts, right? I mean, not the right place to discuss shortcuts. Shortcuts is like a endless story. There's so many of them. Try to create this on your own. Then we will move to the next part of coding this on our own. Instead of being relying on recording something, we will try to code our own macro. Anybody who's trying? How to make column inside in which date and time is there? So here, can you elaborate your question a little more? How to make the column inside in which date and time is present? How to make a column? So any column can. I'm little not sure about the question. Can you please give me an example or relate to this data so that I can pick it up from there? Good, Arshi. Please keep trying. Do post some errors so that we can debug them. The question, I'm still not sure. You're trying to tell how to create this column inside time. It's a very plain column. I can start it all over again. I will delete it and say entry time, exit time, total time spent, day, month, year, weekday, etc. etc. How to create date and time in that column. Right. So how to create date and time in that column? You need to write the functions. Okay. Actually, can you go to data and find there is a question here. My Excel is 2007 version. Options are slightly different. Unable to customize the ribbon. It should be available. Developer option for sure would be there. Maybe it would not be in file. Instead, you will have to go to tools. You may have an Excel icon here, like the office symbol, like the squares. Click on it. Then you will get the options menu. You can enter the time there. Dear, the question whoever asked, how did we get the timestamp? We used this particular function to get the timestamp as of now. We did a control enter to get the date time. We copy pasted it and then give a tab. So it added the current timestamp. This is all that we did. How do I convert this to a timestamp? Generally, when you write timestamp anywhere, it will maximum show would be is date, month, year, hour and minute, not the seconds and nanoseconds. If you want to change it, for instance, there is now here, and I want to change it to a similar format like this. You select the entire column, press Ctrl+1 or use the option here, which is click on the down arrow, which shows number format, go to custom, write your own steps, which is show me first year, then month, then date, hours, minutes, seconds, then 3 zeros, which will refer to your nanoseconds. And so that's how we converted the column to be relevant in this. Out of stack space. That's a weird error, Sneha. I'm not familiar with what exactly out of stack space means. Okay, so here, because these Excel was just created like a normal workbook, this cannot be saved just like that. When I will try to save this, I'm using this button here. Control S can be used. So I will click on save. It will first ask me to save this. I will not do it from here. Instead, I will do it from a different place. I pressed F12 on my keyboard. I will save this file on my desktop. It's telling you want to save this as workbook. I click on save. And just observe, it throws me an error that the following features cannot be saved in macro free workbook. The file that I'm trying to save is an Excel workbook. So it is throwing me an error that, are you sure you want to save it? You want to save the file within the same features or without it? Now, I don't want to do that. So to avoid it, I will have to tell the system that, no, I want to save this as macro enable workbook. Now the extension of this particular will become .xsm. I will click on save. Now the file is saved. So I will show you the extension for it. It is something like book 9. Here it is. You can just look at my desktop. Here it has two different options. Here you have that coding icon visible. Now this is saved as .xlsm. That's the extension. That's the difference between a ExcelR macro enabled workbook. Let's go back to the worksheet. There's a message for me. After recording a macro and giving the shortcut, pop up out of stack space. Can you copy paste the code here, dear? Go to developer, copy paste the code. This error you are getting after stopping the macro or after during recording the macro. So yeah, the message that you just got telling out of stack space. I think you're trying to give macro name having a space. Achha, after recording macro, you are getting this. Can you paste the code? Go to developer, view the code, and then just paste the code here. Let's try to run it. Others, please, if you have systems, please try out, ask questions. You can make this more interactive if you cooperate. Entry time button cannot work. Why is it happening? Entry time and exit time button cannot work. Why is it happening? So whoever asked this question, while you have inserted a button from somewhere, you need to assign a macro. I'm assuming you may have already done it, but if you have done it exactly correct same way, then it should run, right? So I will not give any name. To assign a macro, just right click on it and say assign a macro. Give the macro name that you want to. Click on OK. Click on anywhere on the empty space on sheet, then you can see the hand symbol which will execute the code. That's the only way. How to create the developer? See, the Pallavi question is little complicated for me to digest. I mean, you're telling, can you explain me how to create the developer? You can't create the developer. You want to add the developer to the ribbon. If you want to do so, if your Excel is of my similar version, then go to File, go to More, Options. Here you have Customize ribbon. You have the main tabs available here. Some of them will be unchecked. Look for developer, check it and click on OK. That's how you get the developer tab. Right, so that's how you can get the developer option. But if you're talking about code window, how to go to code window, I will talk about it. Okay, good. I appreciate a lot of folks trying to do it. I hope I have answered your question, Pallavi. Let me know if you're facing any issues. Great. Okay, so if you're using Excel 21 version, you should have the developer option, just that it is not enabled by default. Subhani, if you want it to be enabled, follow the same steps which I showed. Right? Go to File, More. There you have Options. From there, go to Customize ribbon. You have list of options to the left. Click on Customize ribbon. Look for Developer to the right. You have the Customize ribbon option to the right. Look for Developer. Click on Check and OK. It will pick up. Give me 1 quick minute here. Please view this error. Which error, Sneha? Which I've sent something. Give me 1 minute. I'm downloading it. Out of stack space. Okay. So dear, what you need to do is click on debug. It will take you to the VBA screen. Okay. Give me 1 minute. If you can see my screen, click on debug. This will take you to the developer screen. Whatever code that you see, just select all, copy and paste it in the chat box. Right. This one is for Sneha, I believe. Yeah. Just click on debug. Go to the developer option and then just copy paste the values. Right, so activating ribbons mandatory. Now if you want to execute, there's a question that are activating ribbons compulsory? For you to execute or go to code window, you need the developer option, without which you cannot, right? So that's the reason why I'm requesting you to go to ribbon and enable it. I got your code. I'm just copy pasting it. Oh my God, this seems to be really big. I will go to Excel, view code, and paste it. Okay, selection formula now. This seems to be absolutely fine. I mean, there is nothing wrong with this, but this seems to be cluttered with a lot of unnecessary stuff. We're telling that application.run excel edl.excelSX timestamp file, then go to directory user suma desktop, then go to selection c4.select. This is the reason why maybe you're getting the error here. Try to delete. I mean, you can just comment it out, which is either highlight it and click on this icon. This entire range will become comment, or you can select line by line and put a colon to it in the beginning. I will comment this also out. There is already now here, so I don't think so you need now again. I will comment it out. This is also not relevant. I'll comment it out. This should be all. This should work to you. And the problem is you are selecting range A3. So every time you execute the formula, it will go to A3 only. It will not go anywhere else. If you want it to be working on any active cell, remove this particular step there. Then it should work. Your second code looks absolutely perfect here, which is this one. Selection.formula now, copy, paste. One step which is missing is going to the right or to the bottom, but otherwise this is all that you want to. This piece of information, I think you try to do a lot of stuff apart from executing a macro. That is the reason why you got this. So I think you type Windows R, it went to run, and then you executed some file name excel edl.excelSX having sheet name timestamp. That's why you got the error. Your code looks absolutely fine. So if there is a question that in insert, I don't have these illustration option, right? If it is not there in insert, I think previously it was available within home only. So either of these places, it should be there. How to run the code? Is that the question, Gopi? If that is the one, I showed you 3 options. One, at the time of creating the code, you can assign a shortcut. 2 is that you can go to insert, add any of the shapes, any one of them, and then assign a macro to it. How to assign a macro? Just after you have added the shape, right click on it, assign a macro, look for the macro name that you just created, click on it and select OK, and then your macro is added. And then next time all you need to do is click anywhere on the empty cells. This will be enabled with a icon similar to this, and then you can click on it. It'll execute. Right, so let's go back. I mean, if others want to step back and observe creating another macro, this time let's try to add some random data and create some more interactive stuff. Okay, so let's say, I think we spoke about a lot of times about this. Please ignore all that I'm doing. I'm just trying to create some random numbers so that we can I will duplicate this so that we can reuse this. Move or copy. I'll create a copy. I will create one more copy. I will create one more maybe. So let's assume that I have about 5 different products. All I'm expected is, you know what, try to summarize this in form of 5 different products and 5 different charts. Let's try to take help of macro. I mean, creating a chart is like you need to select the range, go to insert, add a chart, and then add data labels, convert one of the column to a row, etc., etc. Right? So that's a little difficult. Is there a way that I can automate that as well? Is it possible? Yeah, it is definitely possible. The numbers does not seem to be very realistic. 23,000 and 18,000 makes sense. Okay, while we go along, I want to tell you that how can you apply a lot of stuff in one go. So let's say that I have 5 sheets here. All of these have formulas here. You get to see my screen. Every time I do some changes, these numbers will change. All I'm expected to do is copy, paste values, go to the next sheet, select it, copy, paste values. Now, is there a way that I can do the same activity at every cell? It is possible. All you need to do will be use control click and select all of them. So I've selected 5 cells. I will give some commands on my keyboard, which is same as you do for a single sheet, which is Control A. First, let me select the sheet. So I will say Control A. It has selected the sheet, and if you go to each one of the sheet, it must have selected the same range, right? I will say Control C. It would have done a copy to all of the sheets having same range, and then I will say paste it as values and click OK. So now I'll minimize this and show you these sheets. You can see that all of them have been selected. All of them are now in values. So to begin with, let us try to create a macro that I can convert these in form of charts. So to begin with, I will leave the cell in A1 because that's how my data is. It's organized in cell A1 everywhere. So I will leave the current cell cursor at A1 only without having any changes to it. I will create one chart manually. For all of the others, I will only execute some code. To do that, I will first tell, please record my macro, that you can click here, or like I showed you a while ago, click on record macro. I will say create chart. So this time I will say Control Shift C. C stands for chart. I'll click OK. Go to insert and say chart. Now here I have a beautiful number. I will click on this, say change chart type. I'll get the dialog box. I'm changing the profit into line, making it secondary. Click OK. Now my chart is selected. I'll click on this plus button and say add data labels. I am done with it. I will say thank you so much. Stop the recording. Right. So my chart is created here, but I'm not confident if this can work by itself. I mean, imagine the pain that I'll have to do is I'll have to do selection, go to insert, chart, add, and so much of information. Instead, can I run the code and it can execute or create the macro? Quite possible. To do that, all I need to do is press the keys, Control Shift C. I got the macro. Right, so let me see who can point out the issues here. I'm running the same code again, which is Control Shift C, create a chart. This created the macro. There is one problem with this. Let me see who can point out what the problem is. Control Shift C. There is a chart here. Then there is something wrong with this that you need to figure out. You have the numbers available. You have the chart in front of you. Try to figure out and let me know what the issue is. Profit. What happened to profit? Be specific. Be specific. What happened? I'll go to product. I'll run the same code again, which is Control Shift C. There is another chart, but then there is some concern with all of the charts. So for your benefit, I'm using Control Page Down so that you can refer to all the charts in one go and try to tell me what is the issue. What could be the problem? You can observe the numbers here, those change as in when I toggle the sheet. But if you observe the chart, the columns have same height. Basically, the data it is referring is only this table, not the other ones. Repeat steps of chart macro. Yeah, certainly we'll have to redo it again. So I will do is select all of them. Go to, so this is something that we did not discuss. I mean, I think I'm sure I must have told you about what is the benefits of F5, which is go to option. You can use a control G as well. So for now, I have done the selection of 5 sheets. I will press F5 on my keyboard. Let me use the keyboard only. So FN F5. You get the go to dialog box. Go to special and click on objects are disabled because there is a selection. Okay, let me not do it that way. It doesn't accept if there is a selection. And so these objects options are very helpful, where it can select the entire images wherever available. You can do a deletion by doing that. So now I will go one by one and delete the charts, and we will try to create this again because somebody told, can you tell the steps to create a chart? So we will try to create the charts again. This time we will try to keep the relative reference into turned off phase. Now, if you read the description, it only tells that next time when you rerun the code, it will run to the same old place, not to the new place. So if I disable it, if I run the same code here, it will pick up the data from here, not from here. So I have turned off the relative reference now. I am creating a chart. So whoever asks this question that how to insert a chart. So for that, I'll have to go to insert, click on this bar chart. I got the option. Now I need to change these to a different way. So I will say change chart type. This one becomes line secondary axis. Click OK. I'll click on the chart and click on this plus and say add data labels. These are the steps involved to create a chart, right? So I'm deleting this and I will literally do it with the help of a macro so that it can remember the steps. So first I will come to the cell A1, go to developer, say please record a macro and say create custom chart. I will give the shortcut as control I because I'm running out of shortcuts. I will click OK. Here is when it will start remembering where all I click. So this is the first click I did. It will remember that. I will say go to a chart and 2D column, the first option. So it has selected the range by itself. I can see the column available, but then the profit is not aligned, right? So this looks too small. So I will have to arrange it and say change chart type, that particular one. I will say instead of clustered column, show me as a line and show it as a secondary axis. I am done with it. I'll click on the chart again simply and then click on plus, add data labels, and then I will stop recording. Right, so this time I'm done with the chart. Let us re-execute this again. I'm here. All I will have to do is run the macro. So I will go to macros instead of running from all other places. Let me show you the fourth option, that how to run a macro without going anywhere. So I will click on create custom chart, which I just clicked on it. What happened? Acha, because I selected the chart, it is trying to remember the chart name. It's not able to add the data labels, but yes, my chart is nearly done. Right? Let's redo it again and try to remember it or relate to it. So how do we do it? To begin with, go to developer option, click on record macro. I will read it as custom chart again. I will say control shift O this time and click on OK. And this time I'll go to insert. My macro is getting recorded. I can see it here and I also see it here. So I'll have to go to insert. Remember, only clicks will be recorded, not the highlighting bit. So this is the click. So I got the chart. I'll have to click on the series, which I want to change the chart type in terms of line. So I will click on this and say, please change it to a line and let that be a secondary axis. Click OK. I will click on the plus button and say add data labels. So I got the data labels. My job is done. I will do is stop it. Right. So that's how I created a chart. I will try to re-execute it here. To do so, I'll go to developer option. And I'm not typing the shortkey. I'm trying to show it which chart we are talking about. So we're talking about macro 13 custom chart. Click on run. It created another chart. Yet again, it's picking up the values from the other sheet. I will try to run the same code again. Let's see what happens. Let me run this. It's again picking up the values from the same sheet. Not relevant, right? Not really happening. Now let's go to the code window and debug the issue, right? That, you know what, you should not be going to the range from sheet this and A1 to whatever. I want you to stick to each of its own sheet. To do so, I'll have to go to Visual Basic, look for the macro which I created with name called macro whatever. Achha, here it is. So it tells that you are referring to sheet name product exclamation A1 to C5. Now all I will do is, dear friend, please ignore the sheet name. Remember only the range. Remember only the range. I will keep the original code as is, and I will try to create a copy of it. But this time I will not refer to a sheet. Right? So I will delete the sheet name and say, okay, fine, good job. Stop executing, close it. Now I will try to run the code. Let's see what happens. So we edited the macro 13, say run. It created a macro here. I'll go to product 2, try to run the same macro again. Please run macro 13. You see the numbers are now changed. Why? Because it is referring to the sheet here. I'll go to the next one, go to product 3, run the same macro again, which is macro 13 custom, say run. I got the macro again, but this time it is referring to this sheet, right? So each time I had to create a chart, all I had to do was train Excel once and just keep repeating it all over again. Okay. There's a question about attendance link. Please address it. Okay. Can you try to execute it on your own, please? Okay. Well, if you have already tried the previous case, if you have any questions, you may ask. I will now move to the coding window. We will do some piece of coding to figure out how the code works, how to deal with it, what exactly it means. Okay, quickly let me know if you have any questions. Thanks for the link, Amar. Okay, I assume there are absolutely no questions. So let's go back to the code window and talk about it, how to address it. Now, to view the code window, there are options how you can view them. Either you can right click on the sheet and say view code, or you can go to developer and say Visual Basics, or you have one more option which most likely would be difficult. So you have the view option. Here you have the macros button and say view macros. It'll go back to the same place. Instead you will get to see the screen, and you can say step into one option, or you can tell view macros, and I think that's it. Use the step into option to go to the macro that you're looking for. By default, it is in the break mode, which is like the cells are in yellow. Now you cannot execute any code, right? So you need to either break it, which is by clicking on reset. Now you can click on run. If it is highlighted something as yellow, you cannot run the codes. Now, whatever you get to see on the screen, it's like oldest version of scripting thing. That's why you have the font in Arial and a lot of old-fashioned information. Now, this sheet is divided into multiple sections. So the center one, what you get to see is called the code window, where you try to execute anything, right? Any piece of code. Now, what is necessary while you create a code is it starts something as sub. These are reserved keys, so you cannot reuse them anywhere. It starts with a sub, ends with an item called end sub. If you see the next macro, the macro name is available here with the open close, and then it ends with a end sub. Similarly, the next macro, it has a sub macro name open close, and then a end sub. In between, whatever you write without having these codes will be considered as a code, and will try to execute them, right? So that's the first step of it, that when you create a macro, you write a sub, give a name to your macro, open close it. The moment you do that, if you hit enter, end sub comes by itself. You don't have to really write it. The system picks up the information by itself. So this piece of information, or whatever you called, is called as code window. Every time I click on it, you get to see a name changing here. So if I click here, you see this name. If I click here, you see this name there. So if I click here, it picks up that name. But if you click on the drop down, it will show you all the macros which are available on the current workbook, right? So I'm currently in Microsoft Sheet cells object. I'm in the sheet name VBA beginning. You can observe the sheet name here, VBA beginning. I'm exactly in that sheet. It has got about 5 sheets which we created, product one, copy of it, and so on. Then you have modules which we created. One was already present, the other one we created it, but unknowingly it got created. You will not really realize that what it is creating. You will only be concerned about so all the macros when you record are added as modules by default. If you want to add one, then you need to take help of the tools options available on the top. Here you have insert, the list of options. We will always try to add module, right? So if you click on add module, you will get to see module 3 getting inserted here. To create a macro from scratch, not recording. Recording is my favorite because you can get any piece of, I mean, who will really remember that active chart dot fill series collection 2 dot select? It's like next to the world how you can remember it, right? Remembering what you call functions is slightly easy because it is more related to the nearly same language that we use to communicate, but communicating with VBA, it's like very difficult. So I will always take help from recorder to get to know what code has to be written to execute a certain piece of information. So to add a particular module, I'll have to go to insert and click on module. The moment you do so, a new module will be created, something like this. I will have to start with sub and give my name and type my macro and open close enter. So you see that end sub is already created and a new macro is being generated, right? Now this is all that I'll have to do. Once I'm done with this, you can write any piece of code and it'll start executing. So for your help, I will try to copy a code which is already available and put it in place of my third macro. I mean the new macro that I just created. This one is referring to a sheet. I will delete it and tell that, okay, my data is available from A1 to C5, and let me try to execute it. Right, so I will go back to my sheet and let me try to run the macro which is just created. The macro's name was my macro, and I will run it. I got the chart created. I hardly had to do anything, right? For stream or branch, what should I type? I'm sorry, dear, I don't have much information about it. Right, so so we're talking about the code window. So this is the piece of this is the place where you try to create your codes. These codes can be of any length. So what are the things that somebody should take care of? It is whenever you write a macro, then it starts with a sub. Sub stands for subroutine. I mean that's the bigger explanation. Can you explain the last macro? Which last macro, Neha? No, you can't. So this is another question. Tells, can we write the code in our language? No, it does not understand your language. It will understand only the language what VB understands, right? So you cannot write a normal English. Your functions are nearly made to a natural language that we discuss or speak during our daily conversation in English. But otherwise, macros are not that easy. I mean, they have their own way of explaining. So it says active chart, set source data, etc., etc. So it's difficult. Right. So the last macro bit that we created, I will just read out the steps. It's telling go to active sheet dot sheet shapes, add a chart. Chart number is 201, column cluster dot select. So this is the is available from A1 to C5. Then what you do is create a chart and do a selection. Convert the second series to X line. I mean, I selected the second column, which is the C column. Change it to line, axis group to enable data labels. Basically, it is changing from primary axis to secondary axis, changing from column to line and enabling data labels. This is all that the macro has done. It's the same steps that visually you can repeat. Visually you can repeat, right? So this is what the my macro did was he created 5 steps. First is it added a chart from this range, selected the second column, converted the chart which was in clustered column to line. For that particular line, it changed it to secondary axis. From secondary axis, it added the element which is data label show, right? So active chart dot set element is equal to element dot show data label. This is all that the my macro did, right? So this is the code window. This piece of area will show in your current module how many macros are there. If I change my module from module 3 to module 2, it will show the available macros in that particular sheet. I mean in that particular code window, that how many macros are available. Now to the left, what you get to see is the Explorer window, which will show all the open workbooks in backend. So there are some sheets which are running in backend, which are not visible here because I have kept them hidden. I mean, as we speak, maybe this would be helpful to you. The view option has a way to hide your sheets which are not relevant. You can hide them and unhide them, because if you keep too many sheets open, this will be like you can see windows after windows. Now if you want to avoid it, all you can do is hide this particular range. Now nothing is visible, but in reality the sheets are there in backend. So we were at the VBA beginning. I will select it, click on OK. But though these are hidden, macro will have that available in backend. Some of the macros are available in backend by default. For example, these funcrease.xlm is available in all the Excel sheets. Similarly, solver, if you have enabled solver in your from the ribbon, you will get to see this is also visible. If you have not enabled, this will not be available. This is one more function which I have enabled in mine, but it may not be available in yours. But at least this one is available by default in all Excels. So this shows, the Explorer window shows all the open workbooks, their objects, which are basically sheets, and their modules, right? So you can click each one of them. Basically, you need to do a double click to get to the or get the codes available on the code window. If you click on each module, you get to see their respective information available on the code window, right? So that's about the Explorer window. If you want to add modules, one way is you go to the menu bar on the top, just above the tools box, go to insert, add a module, or you can click on the modules, right click here and say insert, add a module here as well. Give me 1 minute, there is a chat. Okay, so this is how you add a module. Now this is about the Explorer window. Then you have something visible here. Generally this piece of information is disabled. If you want it to be visible, you can go to view and you can say show me immediate window also. So if you click on it, you get to see this here. Now how is this helpful? Now, generally you put a question mark and you try to ask some piece of information, right? So I will say give me cell 1 which is 1 comma 1 dot value, right? So for now, whichever sheet I am currently in, so I'm currently in product, cell 1 has got value as, let me resize this and show it both of them together. The immediate window can help you figure out what you are trying to look for. So cell row number 1, column number 1 dot value shows region. Similarly, if I want to select something, then I will say cells. Let's say I want to go to column C, which is the third column, and row number 5. So I will say 5 3 close dot select. This will show only true or a false, but you can see the cursor has navigated from here to here. All this is useful when you want to record your macro, right? So there will be instances when you want the column to be coming to here and say you want to sum these two, right? Then you will have to make use of these functions that go from cells 5 to 3 dot select. So it will go and come here, and then you will sell that, cell D5 is equal to B5 plus C5. So it will execute that and put the data here as C5 plus D5. All that is doable, and this immediate window is really helpful. All you need to do would be start with the question and add the information that you are looking for, right? So while you do all of these information, couple of steps that you need to take care of while you create a code is, I mean, don't really focus on what has to be written. I mean, all you need to have in your hand would be is a proper case. What is required? If you have that case available, next thing you would do would be is start to record a macro to know the steps. And remember, when you record a macro, avoid unnecessary clicks, because each time you click somewhere, that step will be added as a it will be recorded as a step. Then it will be difficult for you to clean up, right? Once you have done the recording, you have the code available, you then try to clean it and remove unnecessary steps. So for example, while we recorded the macro, it had picked up the referencing as, which is with the sheet name, right? So every time we executed, the charts were coming from the first sheet itself. Why? Because it was picking up data from product sheet 1, which is like the last sheet available on our screen, right? So each time we executed a chart in any of the sheets, it was picking only this data. Why was that happening? That was happening because the code had considered the sheet which is product 1. That's not true. That's absolutely not true. So we created another line telling you have the same range, but sheet is not product, it is active sheet, right? So it is simply selecting that set source is equal to current sheet. Obviously, you are trying to run the macro in the current sheet, so it is picking up the range from that particular sheet. So when you want to create your own customized macro and you are really not that great creating macros or writing code, take help of recording macros, figure out how a particular activity is understood by macro. Matlab, it's not your and mine spoken language that it can easily be converted. So for this, you need to execute one step. You will get the code how it has to be written, reuse it in your macro. Then you try to create your own story that first this has to happen, after this has to happen, and then something has to happen. All you need to do would be is create pieces of codes and then try to assemble all of them together in one particular macro, run them, you will be the king of it, right? So this I mean, to speak about macros, this is like uh, too much to learn. I mean, starting from whatever we have discussed is only about the window. There is more to know about it, starting from declaring variables. Now, what are variables is, if you say I want to check data of numbers, then you need to first tell the system that, I have a column called numbers that has to be treated as integer. I have a column called region that has to be treated as varchar, which is that's not a number. Instead, it is a text. There is a place where I have only true or false values, which is a boolean, right? So you need to declare all of them in advance, right? So how do you do that? You start writing a macro and then declare your variables. Like starts with a dim stands for dimension. Give a variable name, like my region, as you get to see all the available information. Now here I will call it as integer. That means it is a number. Then you have boolean, which is a true or a false. Then you have varchar is a SQL process. Um, String is used for text. It will accept data in terms of text. Then you have double, which will hold decimals as well. And I mean, we already spoke about integers. So these are like containers, right? So this particular information can carry a set of numbers. When I copy chart from Excel to MS Word, it's okay when I make changes. Okay, Sanjay, you probably need to paste it as a text. There's a question that I have a chart in Excel. I am moving it to Word, but when I move it to Word and do changes in my Excel, the chart also changes on the Word. I think we discussed this piece some time back. I in fact have the Word open on my screen. Let me try to redo the problem for you. So you're trying to copy this chart, bringing on to a word. So if you do a simple paste, I mean, how did I paste? I will try to paste it using right. Right. So this is like a normal paste. All the changes that I do here will go there as well. Right. So here it is gone. Here also it should go. Let's see. Now let's say 177. The changes happened here. The changes will happen here also. So if you don't want that to happen, copy the chart, right? Copy the chart, right click and do a copy from the top. Here, paste it as image, picture. next time you do any changes on this, the other one will not change. So I deleted all of them, though my chart is updated. This guy is not changed because this is an image. So that's how you can control your data and ensure that it is not getting erased. Anyways, let's get back to the coding part. So while I said that when you want to create a macro, you try to call all your variables one by one. I think I have a sample here to avoid wasting of time. So here I have tried to create a macro. It has got very simple stuff. Tells that when you execute this, it will create a message and tell welcome to class. Let us try to execute it and say run. It's telling that welcome to class. I mean, what is help acting it to do is MSG box is a reserved keyword. When you type this and put a text, by default it will read that information. If I say only hi and now I will execute it, you see that hi available here, right? Now I want this to be a little more interactive. Then what I will do is I will first have to call create a student name a string. String means a text. Now if I run this piece of code which is available here, and what happens is I will first be asked, can you please give me your name? My name is Nadeem, and I click OK. So it reads welcome to the class, Nadeem. So what did it do is it will first ask, show you an input box, right? Input box is a reserved keyword and it will have some help question, right? So I have called student name to consider string. So when you say string, it can accept numbers, characters, everything. So this student name has to be declared first that it will consider string values. So I'm using that name here. This name is equal to an input box. That input box entry will be done in front end. Once you have done the entry, this will show welcome to the class, right? So I will re-execute it again. This time I will not put a name, I'll click on cancel. I will still get to see welcome to the class, but there is no control over it. Basically, ideally, if at all I don't enter a name, it should throw me an error telling, dear, sorry, I cannot accept it until you give me a name, right? Until you give me a name. So to do that, we will have to take help of loops. First, I will have to do is check that the student name input box should not be blank. If it is not blank, then it will show the message box. But if it is blank, it will keep repeating, please enter your name infinite times. So this time I will execute the code which is welcome without blank. I will click on play. Here it is asking, please enter your name. This time I will click OK. It shows me another message tells name is mandatory. Okay, fine. I will again skip this part trying to say okay. Again it'll say name is mandatory. So why is that repeated again and again? Is till the time you don't give your name here, it is not going to agree. So now if I click OK, this will read the message welcome to the class Nadeem, right? So let's try to break the code into pieces. First, when you execute the macro, it will welcome message is stored as a string here, which is welcome to the class. So that's not going to run anything. So it starts from here that do. What do you do? It shows an input box having please enter your name. If you student name does not equal to blank, it will exit the do. That means how will it exit? It will show that message box welcome student name. But if you don't, then it will show name with message box. Message box having another code telling name is mandatory. Simple piece of code, but runs a lot of ways. Now this same information you can try to replicate it in various forms. Like you want to give a user form to somebody and ask the person to enter a list of information. Please enter your name, your date of birth, your age, your school name, college name, your class name, uh, qualification, etc. At any one of the places, if the data type is not matching, for example, there is a place where it is supposed to accept only numbers, right? Like mention your class number one, first to 10th. If you're trying to type TE and 10, it will not agree. It should be only numbers. So you can use the same loop option and then tell that if the class is equal to text, then you don't accept it. Try to show the message that this is what it is, right? You need to enter only numbers. Can you please send me the attendance link? Okay. Sorry, somebody was asking for attendance. I think the person has dropped off. Okay, so loops are very helpful. Like somebody asked, how can you write a formula to all the columns, right? So I want, let's say, to calculate tax, right? So this cell is going to be this cell plus, let's say, 5%. Then next cell, this plus this is equal to 5%. So it should go on starting from here until here, and then it should stop the moment it reaches the last cell. How is that possible? Yes, loops are something that will help you reach the destination, right? So loops can be of various kind, like it can be do loop, while loop, etc., etc. Like I said, that macros are something which are stuff which needs a lot of uh, training, and more importantly is you need to have some real cases where you want to utilize them or use them. Until then, you will not be able to relate to it. I mean, one of it I have tried to give in, or in fact we tried to address three different ways of creating macro. One was like entry exit timestamp, then creating charts. In fact, we also tried how to add sheets with the click of a button, and then we also tried to create a user form kinds where somebody has to fill some piece of information and then it can go on. Right. So in terms of macros, like I mentioned a while ago, it's a story which has got like too many chapters to it and may require a lot of time to it. But like I said, that stick to the class, that all you need to know is the language. How to get the languages? Try to execute a piece of activity yourself and record it. Once you have recorded it, whatever activity you did will be converted to a VBA language. Then you can try to make use of that language and create your own custom code. I mean, I wrote this just to ensure that you're not wasting time. Okay, so I think I'm done for the day. Mm, I will keep the session open for some time to address your questions. I'll be more than happy to address, while there should be some update about what is going to happen for tomorrow. That ExcelR team will let you know. There's a question for me: can create macro to create chart in Excel and paste images Word? Oh, definitely possible, Sanjay. You want to create a macro in Excel and I want to paste it as an image in Word. Definitely you can do it, Sanjay. Macro can communicate between Microsoft applications very easily because Word also has macros inbuilt. So it can definitely do it. Okay, so if it addresses your question, Sanjay, I hope so. Others, whoever are available, I keep the session open for some more time. Let me know if you have any questions for me. What about tomorrow's sessions? I think we'll be starting PowerPoint or Word tomorrow, but yes, we will join and connect at 7 sharp as usual. Who will be taking ahead? That the ExcelR team will let you know. About the assignments, so those will be assigned once all the topics are completed. Please correct me if I'm wrong, and you will definitely be notified about it. So remain calm and try to refer the recordings wherever applicable, available. I have tried to ponder a lot of information that I already have in my experience. I know in a very short time we tried to cover a lot of stuff. Try to make use of these recordings and bring into your real life, and then you should be able to make it. Can you please give me some highlight about yesterday's class? I wish I could have done that, Neha. For that, you will have to refer the recordings. That should be the better way to address. If you have any questions specific about, I can address them now. But I cannot run through the entire session what we covered yesterday. I think we spoke about pivots. and creating charts from pivots, and also some bit of slicers. We spoke about creating custom column. Gopi's question is, where can I see the assignments? The assignments will be available on the ExcelR portal. Log in, choose your course. You will get to see the assignments to the left. But those for now are not enabled till the time the courses are completed. Okay, I'm here. Please make use of time. Do